The Ministry of Forests introduces the Major Licensed Silviculture Information System. The Memorandum of Understanding on Softwood Lumber and Bill 70 have both created the need for a system to record silviculture information on major licensed tenures. The effect of Bill 70 was to stop the normal flow of silviculture data and create new requirements for pre-harvest prescription, related data capture, monitoring, and obligation tracking. The Major Licensed Silviculture Information System specified in this manual is intended to meet these requirements, and this video production has been produced by the Ministry to assist major license holders in meeting their obligations by correctly implementing the system.
The thrust of the legislation introduced in the fall of 1987 is to make licensees responsible and accountable for obtaining free-growing stands in accordance with an approved pre-harvest silviculture prescription. The legislation created two types of tenures, the major tenure and the non-major tenure. Major tenures include the tree farm license, the forest license, the woodlot license, and some timber sale licenses. Non-major tenures include the small business program. The source of authority for major tenures comes from Section 129.3 of the Forest Act. This section describes the duty of major license holders respecting basic silviculture. Section 129.7 describes default, failing to establish a free-growing crop, and describes the harvest area of obligation to meet free-growing. The silviculture regulation defines a pre-harvest silviculture prescription and how it is to be submitted and approved. For each cutting authority, commonly called the cut block, referred to in Section 129.7, there will be an obligation definition which describes the PHSP characteristics. This information will be recorded on Form A. Silviculture activities achieved will be reported 60 days after completion, and land status will be reported 60 days after logging, at regen delay, and free growing for each cutting authority. The recording of MLSIS information will allow the Ministry and the licensee together to monitor the efforts of bringing the cutting authority area to free growing. Once the area is free growing, the Forest Service will use this information to continue forest management.
In 1987, new legislation created major licenses, and major license holders comprise 75% of all new silviculture activities in the province. And therefore, the new Major Licensed Silviculture Information System will handle the majority of silviculture data. This system design specification document attempts to encompass all currently known requirements for the Major Licensed Silviculture Information System, with its objectives being to capture and maintain silviculture prescriptions, record primary silviculture activities, including harvesting, record forest cover attributes for inventory users, record pest infestations for forest protection users, record major licensed silviculture costs, produce information for forestry annual reporting, provide monitoring tools for district personnel, and to provide an information interface to a variety of users.
Those are the objectives. And as major license holders have to follow certain procedures to retain licenses, the Ministry included input from lumber associations in the final design. And together, we will realize these objectives and make the Major Licensed Silviculture Information System a valuable contribution to maintaining the future of British Columbia's forests. In order for the system to work, it is a requirement of major license holders to complete a series of 4 forms, until such a time as the area becomes free-growing and the Forest Service takes over responsibility. Before introducing you to the form layout and a commentary on procedures for correctly filling them out, let me point out a few general rules covering the use of certain letters and symbols that have been standardized to avoid misinterpretation.
First rule is that all letters must be capitalized, and so as not to confuse them, the letter 0 is written as a 0, the letter O carries a stroke, the letter S is underlined, and the Z carries a stroke through the center. The letter I has a top and a bottom. The V a point, and the U carries a tail. The letter L must look like an L. The continental 7 is not acceptable. Write the 7 like this, and the null sign is not acceptable. Either use a 0 or a blank. And now sit back and we will show you the 4 forms as clearly as possible and describe how to correctly fill them out.
The forms required by the Major License Silviculture Information System are FS 708 A, B, C, and D. These replace Section 88 forms. A is the most important, C you will find is the most difficult, and of course D is confidential. Each form will have a flyleaf which will describe the form's objective, when and how it is to be submitted. There will also be some code definitions included. The back of each form has detailed instructions. Please refer to these instructions when completing each form. Each form is 2-part, 1 copy for the major license holder and 1 for the district office. Form FS 708A, the Pre-Harvest Obligation Definition Form. When the pre-harvest silviculture prescription is submitted to the district manager, this form should be completed and accompany the PHSP. As you can see, the form is quite simple for a cut block with 1 PHSP and treatment unit. Form FS 708A defines the area of obligation, describes key area identifiers, and supplies pre-harvest silviculture monitoring information. There are 4 separate sections in Form FS 708A, and we will now deal with each one in detail. Section A is tenure. It identifies the cut block and the associated PHSP obligation. The field headed Years to Harvest simply means the number of years from the approval date to harvest date. The last field that we're going to discuss in this section deals with the timber mark, and this requires a little more explanation. There is a unique timber mark for each cut block. This is a very important field which is used to identify each obligation in the province. The timber mark plus block number is called the obligation and will be used in the activity form B to identify where the activities are carried out. We now move to section B, which deals with PHSP-A. The information from 1 pre-harvest silviculture prescription is entered here. If there are 2 PHSPs, then the PHSP-B section should also be used. All the information can be transcribed from the PHSP except for pest code information. The percent pest infestation is the percent of area affected. Look on the back of the form for details. And finally, the section headed Forest Service Use. Once the major license holder has filled out the form and checked it, the form is submitted to the district for approval. The Forest Service fills out this last section. The authority number is a number used by the Forest Service for their filing system. It is the BCGS map number plus a unique identifier. These details on the Forest Service Use section are for your information only, as it's the responsibility of the Forest Service to fill out these fields. Form FS 708B, the Activity Reporting Form. This form consists of 4 parts. 60 days after denudation or the completion of a silviculture activity, the major license holder should submit this form. Activities on different obligations can be entered on one form, each differentiated by the obligation number. All the codes needed can be found on the back of the form or on the flyleaf. The first section of the activity reporting form is Section A, Denudation. This section details harvesting activity, whether it be clear-cut or selectively logged. Each harvested area recorded is identified by the timber mark and block number. They can be found on Form A. There can be multiple entries. For example, if in the past month 5 different cut blocks were completed logging, then all could be recorded on the form by obligation number. The second section of the activity reporting form is Section B, Silviculture. Activities completed on different cut blocks can be entered in this section, each identified by the obligation number recorded on Form A. Under the field headed Activity, if the activities are either survey, site preparation, or stand tending, the planting only section does not have to be filled out. For planting activities, Section C should have tree species and trees planted complete. The species codes can be found on the back of the form. And finally, the Forest Service only section. When the major license holder has completed the form, it is submitted to the district. The district will complete this section. Form FS 708C, the Forest Cover Definition Form. The intent of Form FS 708C is to record land status information 60 days after harvest, at regeneration delay time, and at free growing. One form is completed for the cut block at each of the 3 times noted. All fields must be completed at harvest and free growing submissions. The area, strata, layer, rank, and stocking status fields are the only fields required at regeneration delay. The obligation is stratified when the silviculture label is different. Multi-layered stands can be identified using the layer and rank fields. See the back of the form for instructions. The stocking status of the strata, whether the strata is SR, NSR, or NP, is entered in the stocking status field. The sum of the strata areas must equal the total area harvested for the cut block. The Forest Service only section will be completed at the district office. Form FS 708D, Annual Silviculture Cost Summary. The intent of Form FS 708D is to record the cost and area for silviculture activities completed by the end of the current ministry fiscal year, which is April 1st to March 31st. The form should be submitted to the district by the date specified on the back of the form. Form D should be completed by a major license holder for each district for which he holds tenures, broken down by basic and incremental activities, one form for basic and one for incremental. For each activity type and code, the total cost, on-site cost, direct cost, and total area has to be recorded. The back of the form defines the costs. Once the form is complete, the license code and the name of the reviewer is completed by Forest Service personnel. The costs will be used to meet softwood lumber agreement reporting requirements and appraisal system requirements. In summary, the basic silviculture form submission process will be as follows. Licensee has the registered professional forester prepare and sign PHSP. Licensee advertises notice of prescription. District manager approves PHSP. Licensee carries out basic silviculture and submits Forms B and D. Licensee maps area and keeps records of basic silviculture and submits Land Status Form C at 60 days after harvest and regeneration delay. Licensee reports achievement of free growing to Forest Service and submits a map and Status Form C. Forest Service monitors compliance with PHSP in steps 4 to 6. Result: free growing stands of healthy trees, ecologically suited to the site.
Now that you have been introduced to completing the forms, I will explain how to deal with mistakes and correct them. When the forms have been completed, submitted, and loaded into the Major License Silviculture Information System, a report of which data was rejected due to errors will be produced and forwarded to the major license holder. These errors must be corrected. Another report will detail informational messages. The FS708E form is used to notify the Forest Service that a change is needed and details that change. The form is submitted to the district office. The instructions are found on the back of the form. Please be sure to identify which cut block data item you are changing by specifying the obligation number. This system design specification document attempts to encompass all currently known requirements for the Major License Silviculture Information System. We have produced this video to assist you in the correct method of filling out the required forms. to assure that the major license holders and the Forest Service together have the correct information to manage to free growing and beyond. We will supply major license holders with a copy of the video production so that it may be reviewed whenever an important concept of the forum requires clarification. The magic of video is that it is always there for replaying and reviewing the instructions, and the Forest Service is always here and available to assist in correcting errors and doing all we can to assure that the major license silviculture information system is a success.
As forest managers, we have a responsibility to manage British Columbia's forest lands. Recent changes to legislation, regulation, procedures, and systems require everybody's cooperation. The Major License Silviculture Information System was designed through a cooperative committee of the Forest Service and major license holders. This cooperation was essential in designing the system and will be even more important in its implementation.